Hey Brian, how are you?
Good.
Hey guys, welcome to For Our Diaries, and today we're talking to Brian Garay. And both of us have been framers for a really long time. I've been doing framing for probably 15 years.
Yeah.
And now I do my own, but before it was,
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing framing?
Well, I've been doing it professionally for 20 years,
Yeah.
but I started building my own frames back in the early 90s in my dad's garage. It all started actually. It was one of my first art shows here in Chicago, and I had all my stuff on the wall, presented really nice, and actually a sculptor came up to me, and he was just admiring my work, and he goes, "You got nice work, kid." He goes, "You need to frame it." He goes, "Otherwise, it looks like student work."
Right.
And that really sunk in, and I thought, if I want to be taken seriously, I want to frame my work. And I went to the hardware store, bought a bunch of 1x2s.
Yeah.
Started ripping rabbits on a table saw, and that's where it started.
Yeah. When Jared and I first started this for art, we bought a bunch of equipment, and that's what we would do, because even though we worked with some of the molding companies, we wanted to have our own molding that was for the artist.
Yeah.
It's cheaper, they can afford it, but it was nice. I mean, to be honest with you, it really should have been more than what we were getting from the molding company, because the time that we took on, ripping it, sanding it, waxing it, staining it. I mean, you know what I mean? It goes, that's hours and hours. And I mean, that's actually days of work.
Yeah.
And it was our cheapest molding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, we probably were getting paid 50 cents an hour.
Yeah. I still build frames in my garage, but only for my work, because I know how labor intensive it is.
Absolutely.
And also I make a lot of frames from stuff left over at work.
Yeah.
So I get a little bit of both.
So guys, today what Brian and I were talking about a couple of days ago was the fact that as framers, along the way we have mentored artists about the proper way to frame your work, the importance of framing your work. Even if you're framing yourself and you're going picking up a frame at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or whatever, what next? Because we know we're artists. We know we're always on a constant budget, but even on a budget, you can do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'll build a picture frame at work for a painting I have at home, and I bring the work at home. At work we we put paper on the back, and we use glazer's points. When I'm at home, I just use screws to hold it. Inexpensive screws to hold the piece in. That way also, if you want to photograph your work later, it's really easy to take the screws out, put it on an easel, get a full photograph, and put it right back in the frame. Yeah.
But you know what? Framing supplies are relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And those little, what do they call those little nails, the nail gun that you do?
Like glazer points.
Right.
Yeah.
And that alone was, maybe it's $20 for the gun, and you can buy a whole box of the little things that you snap in behind your canvas or whatever, and it doesn't really cost all that much money. And if you're working all the time on canvas, I would suggest getting one of those. I'll put the link of one in the descriptions. Just remind myself. So you guys can check it out, because it really is part of, I think, an artist's, toolkit. I think that would be invaluable to have one of those.
Yeah. A nice corner vise or two also comes in handy. You can buy these big cast iron ones that are made like industrial grade. They're like $60 a piece, or you can go to the hardware store like a Menards or a Home Depot or Lowe's, and you can get these nice little small portable aluminum ones that work just as well. They're about $6 or $8 a piece, and, you know, and they're invaluable. Right,
and you'll have them for a really long time.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of things people think about is just, you know, what I've done in the past too is I've gone to Hobby Lobby several times. Back in the day, they used to have a whole section of frames.
Yeah.
And they were really super cheap.
Yeah.
And what I would do is if I liked the frame, and a lot of times it was odd sizes. But you know, I was like, you know what? It is a challenge for me. Like the hands over there, I know you guys can't see it, but the hands over there, that was a Hobby Lobby frame. And I said, well, it's a weird size. What would I do with it? I don't know. But I thought they were $5 a piece. So I bought 2 of them. And, you know, I went to the hardware store and had them rip down a couple of pieces of hardwood and to fit inside the frame. So you can do that. You know, you don't have to be so 16 by 20, rigid. 18 by 24, yeah.
You know what, you can actually take a 24 by 30 frame, take it at home, and if you have a chop saw, you can cut it down to any size you want if you have corner clamps.
Yeah.
You know, so you can make it, you know, 22 by 30 or whatever, you know, if you have the right tools.
Yeah, no, I mean, just for people, a lot of times, a lot of these guys, you know, I know you guys, you're not going to have the room to do, you know, that kind of thing, but you got to kind of find a way to be inventive. But when I'm saying that, but that also means that you also have to find a way to be professional, present the best of your work. And, you know, framing is one of those things, like you said, it separates the serious from,
you know, I mean, you don't want it to look like student work. You know, there is work that is meant to be not framed. I understand, like gallery wrapped, you know, canvases.
But finish your sides. Or keep them clean.
Keep it clean, or you know. But I think if you're just going to have a canvas, just you know, on the wall, you really a frame just finishes it off, and you know. It
keeps it from becoming warped, because a lot of times those thin canvases that you get, the value.
It's organic material, like moisture will affect it and everything.
Absolutely, you know, and if they're not good quality, and they definitely, you don't have any time whatsoever, they as soon as you throw some paint on those canvases, they're going to warp immediately. And I'm not poo-pooing the value. I'm all for valued, you know, products, because we don't always have the money. But those kind of pieces are definitely going to have to be framed. You want it to, you're going to finish this beautiful piece and you're going to hang it on the wall, and you've got edges that are rocking, you know, back and forth.
You know, also too, if I don't work on canvas, I work on panels, but I would give advice to anybody buying canvases at the store, look at them first before you buy them. I mean, some places have them for sale dirt cheap. But you got to look, you got to hold it up and make sure there's not that bow in the middle, because that really affects the framing, you know, and make sure they're straight. And if you're going to stretch your own canvases, you know, look at the stretcher bars, because from the time they get to the sawmill to the store, they're going to go through all kinds of heat, humidity, cold, and it's wood. It's an organic material, so it'll warp, it'll twist, or it'll bow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, nothing we have is, you know, meant to last forever, but if you can frame it, or you can do it in a way that it's going to stay, you know, in good shape, then that's going to be very helpful to the piece in the longevity. So, you know, let's talk about, you know, not just the framing part of it, but also like for papered work and that kind of thing, and that archival, you know, frame of mind. I don't know that everybody really understands what that means. How about you talk about that?
Well, our archival means using materials that won't damage your work. If you ever look at old pieces that were framed like in the 70s or 80s, you'll see, like, if it's a beveled mat, you'll see the mat where it's cut the bevel, it's yellowed. And sometimes they used to back them with cardboard. Now, these materials have acids in them
Right.
that can damage your work.
And have done, because I've reframed a bunch of that
Yeah,
stuff.
it'll be like coffee spots will start forming on your work. So that's really important. Also, using good glass to protect it from the UV rays or whatever.
Conservation clear is, I would say that's the mid-range of the glass. It's good. It's not so expensive. Then you go up to the higher bracket, which is a museum glass. That is a bit more expensive. But for me, I mainly used conservation clear for all of my clients, unless they requested museum glass because it was so expensive.
Yeah, and also if you're shipping your artwork, it's best to use plexiglass.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen
Right.
unless it's being hand delivered by a professional.
And there is UV quality plexi.
Absolutely.
And don't just go to Ace and pick up a piece of plexi, because that's not what you're going to want to use.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our art supplies isn't always light fast.
Right.
It might be archival, but some of it's not light fast. And I only just learned that.
Yeah.
I thought archival was archival.
Yeah, there's different grades. Yeah.
There's different grades.
Yeah.
And so now everybody's learned something new, I hope.
Yeah. Also, if you're framing pastels, make sure you really spray fix them really good, because plexiglass has a lot of static electricity, and it'll just pull.
And it's going to do that
pigment.
anyway. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to do that anyway, because I have reframed a good many. I've become a real dislike of pastels for that reason, because
you get that ghosting.
even on the glass, you'll get the ghosting. All of a sudden, this film underneath there starts to really build up, and then the artist brings it to me like I've done it. I said, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
I can show you how to take this apart so that you can clean the glass.
Yeah.
But, the mat would get dusted, everything would get dusted. I said, well, it's the nature of the beast.
The big fear of people that come in our shop is like the spray sticks will darken the colors. And it will. It'll darken them very slightly, but it's a necessity. It really is.
But even with the spray fix, there's still some, not as much, but it still happens. And
it offers a little protection.
It does offer a little protection. So, I mean, there's flaws in every type of material that we use for art. But if you love pastels, then you've got to play with the idea of how is the best way to frame it.
Yeah.
I mainly did it to where eventually, as I learned, is I was like, well, we need to build more of a shadow box type thing.
Spacers,
so that it is farther away than the 1/4-inch spacers that we would buy for framing.
Helpful.
And so what I was doing was buying extra black archival foam core, and I was putting the spacers, to keep the glass in place, or the plexi. Then I would build in with the foam core on the sides and the top, and then push in the artwork in the back.
Yeah, so you leave like a nice space where it is.
And it would depend on the artwork and the type of plexi that we use, because I can tell you sometimes, depending on the material, the farther away the artwork is, not so good. You really got to play with it to understand how that's going to work with every different kind of piece.
Yeah, if you have a good piece of museum plexi, it's going to look like there's nothing there.
Right. Yeah,
so actually, if you spend a little more money, it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a tip there if you're working with pastels, is to, it doesn't have to be very deep. It could be a 1-inch.
Yeah, and if you float a nice pastel, if you're floating it too, it's a nice look. I like it. I like the framing.
Absolutely. And then the debris falls to the bottom, but you have enough room to where it's not so much, unless you're shaking it, moving around, or however you're, I always say, when you're doing that kind of work and you're putting it away, you want to store your pastels downward. not sideways, not upside down, flat with the artwork flat down. And you don't want to store them really like this either, unless they're going up and they're staying up on the wall or whatever.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But if you're storing it, I would always recommend storing them flat.
Yeah.
So there's some of that. I mean, we can go on and on about that. I mean, it's a
you know, here's another tip that a lot of people don't realize. If you're going to build your own frames at home, say you have an 8x10 painting, don't cut the frame 8x10. You want to cut it 8 1/8 by 10 1/8.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is something a lot of people don't really realize. You got to give a little bit of breathing space. So you're giving a 1/16 inch around just to give a little breathing space. Otherwise, especially if it's a canvas, if it's really tight, it'll buckle the canvas and put a big, you know. Yeah,
and it'll crack your glass too, because one little hit on a corner or a side, that's it. A crack is going to happen. But those are some tips there for framing. If you can't frame your own work, you know, go to shops and see, even like resale shops or what do you call those, AMVETs or those kind of shops, and they'll have like what they call the hotel art. But the frames are nice.
Yeah, the frames are beautiful.
Take the art out and give it back to them, and keep the frames, and you're buying them for like $1, $2.
Or you could even like you know, re-gesso the canvas and you know, reuse it that way.
You know, there's a lot of ways of repurposing things, and you know, if the frame's got, you know, any scratches, you can buff it out, or you can add some wood fillers and sand it and prime it and then spray paint them, and it's a whole new.
It's like refinishing like a piece of furniture. You know?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, some of those hotel art frames are really nice. I mean,
they're done by frame shops.
Good quality.
Yeah, we do them in our shop.
So don't be dismayed by the color. The color can be changed. Some spray paint. So there's that. But we also want to talk about is what we've learned as framers and what we could mentor and talk about to the artist here in terms of, you know,
dealing with artists.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you start with a little bit of that, of what your experience have been, you know, dealing with artists and some of the, you know, mistakes that you're seeing on a continual basis that need to be remedied.
Well, there's a few things. The one thing that always kills me, because I'm a frame builder, is when the artist signs his piece at the very edge of the painting, and then they expect you to, I mean, you know, it's going to get covered up. You know,
because there's a 1/4 inch lip on all the frames, by the way. That your piece goes in. There's a 1/4 inch lip that covers a 1/4 inch all the way around. Unless you float mount.
Unless you put a floater frame on it. And I have a friend who's a great artist, and he knows how I feel about it, but he continually, because he has this idea that like all his paintings are like a tapestry. Like every square inch is but I'm like, no, every good painting is a focal point.
Right.
You know, so sign your pictures, you know, at least, you know, just give me some space to work with, because you want your signature to, you know, you want everybody to know who painted this piece. You know,
it's hard, you know. I think, you know, for me, I don't sign a lot of my pieces on the front. I just don't. You know, it's not about, you know, my information is on the back of every piece. Some pieces I do sign where I feel that it fits. See, I'm also a graphic designer. So it's all also about composition. And your signature is not just a signature on the finished product. It's also becomes part of that piece. It's, you know, same thing with framing. It's not some afterthought. It's the finishing touch. It's the voila, it's the bravo, it's the
cherry on top.
It's the cherry on top. Not the, oh well, I'm just gonna put this crap in some old beat up frame and who cares, and I'm gonna sign it all kind of different ways and who cares. You know, no. You know, that is when I finish a piece and you sign it, that's when you say, wow, I love this piece, boy. And that is a proud moment.
Yeah.
It's like signing
done.
$1 million check to yourself. You know what I mean?
It's time to move on to the next piece.
So don't treat it like this last resort.
Yeah.
11th hour decision.
Yeah.
Let it be part of your composition, whether you have your signature on the front of your piece or on the back of the piece. It really, it's up to each individual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, tell you how to do that. But, like he's saying, if you're going to frame this piece, don't expect the framer to be able to work a miracle and put it in a frame with a 1/4 inch lip and show your piece when it's right on the edge.
Right on the edge.
Bottom edge.
Yeah, unless you don't mind it being covered up.
If you don't care if it's covered up, then that's fine.
Another thing that's helpful for artists also, because we're always trying to save money, most frame shops have overstock. And we usually, where I work, we offer overstock at a better price than if we have to order it.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that.
Now, are you guys online? You have a website?
Yeah, we have a website.
Okay, I'm gonna put the website in the description, people.
Yeah. Especially now, because we're having problems with supply chains, we're getting material shipped in for clients that came in May, and here is November, because we're just not getting stuff fast enough like we used to.
Yeah.
So overstock, reduced price, it's good for everybody because we like to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
we
great
have
for
artists that come in the back, and we have them look through all our stuff. We have ready-made frames, odd sizes. People order something, they never come for it. So we have all that kind of stuff.
And you can find that, like you said, you can go to a frame shop, ask them, do you have, odd sizes or, overstock frames or anything that, they're trying to get rid of, and get a reduced price. Even if you don't like the color of that frame, again, get it made to you the size that you need, take it home in the alley, in the backyard, wherever you got to do it. Put it down and spray it the color that you want, black, white, whatever. So there's always options.
Yeah. And and like I say, we were talking earlier about using good materials like stretcher bars. Sometimes they'll bring in a piece of work that's a trapezoid. They stretch it themselves, and they want you to frame it. It's like, we might have to restretch this.
Yeah.
So that's another thing,
Yeah, you got to have squared off pieces, people. You can't come in and one side's going this way, and unless that's part of your aesthetic.
Yeah.
But then don't expect a framer to figure out how to frame it.
We get it a lot, especially just put it in a floater frame. Okay, but it's still going to look weird.
Yeah.
If that's what you like,
Plan ahead.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I've known artists who's made very wonky style cut of frames, but it was part of their aesthetic.
Right.
It was meant to be funky.
Right.
But you can't frame that. What they did was, and they asked my advice on how to make sure that this piece was going to stay flat because of the way that you do it. You're going to have twists and turns, and that is going to totally just destroy what you try to do. So I recommended that they get a piece of plywood, at least a 1/2 inch thick, so that it's or particle board, something heavy. Prime it, and then screw it from the back side. Cut it to put your piece on there, trace it out, cut it, so then it becomes part of the backing. And not only does it help your piece never to warp, you just screw into the wood of your, boards, and now you also have a way to hang it properly.
Yeah.
That's another thing we need to talk about, proper hanging.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get a frame. I've had people come in here with frames, no wire, no sawtooth hanger. They said, "Oh yeah, I had this hanging like this at my house."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, good, because at your house, when that falls off the wall, it's on you."
Yeah, they just put a nail in a drywall.
Right, and they just plunk. But when it falls off the wall at a gallery, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you got to pay for that. No.
Yeah, you become liable.
Yeah, it doesn't get hung, folks.
Yeah.
It doesn't get hung. If you don't bring something that has proper wiring, some galleries will only accept work that has been wired. They don't want sawtooth hangers or any other kind of apparatus.
Yeah, it's a small investment. You know, you can buy some D-rings.
Yeah.
You
can order right on Amazon.
Yeah.
And the wire.
Yeah.
A whole spool of it.
Yeah, and you can get a lot of mileage off of it. You know, you can frame a lot of paintings.
And a lot of people don't like working with the wire because the wire that you buy at the hardware store doesn't have the plastic coating on the outside. So believe me, I understand. I've ripped a lot of fingers up trying to work with that kind of wire.
Oh, the ends,
Yeah,
the frame ends.
and just the whole thing, none of it is protected. But when you buy the spool of the framing wire, it has a coating, a plastic coating that encompasses all of the wire. And so it makes it very easy for anybody to work with it. You're not hurting your fingers, you're not stabbing yourself. It's a very easy material to work with. And you buy a spool of it and you have enough to save you for a while. Buy the proper D-rings.
Lasts for a long time.
And when I say proper D-rings, I mean proper, because there's a lot of knockoffs out there that if you have a really heavy piece, it's going to twist them.
Yeah.
Because the metal isn't strong enough.
Right. Yeah, really, really thin brass or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and getting back to also, we were talking about odd, like trapezoidal, and just one more thing. What we can do is we router out the inside of the frame to fit that weird shaped, you know, not square painting, but it's also an extra cost. I just wanted to touch back on that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
but you got to be creative. I mean, as artists. Our artistry doesn't end at the painting or the sculpture or that. It's all also about the display.
Yeah.
You know, you eventually want your work to go to your collectors and they take it from here and they go home and they hang it properly, because I'm going to tell you right now, collectors know the proper way to hang work. And that's a real quick way for you to lose respect. You give them a piece that's going to fall off the wall, or you give them a sculpture that isn't properly stabilized, and as soon as any little vibration, that stuff is falling over.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Yeah, I was in a show about 20 years ago. It was a salon show, and somebody had their work hung above my work, and the guy just he just drove a screw into the drywall and hung this big canvas. Well, you know, the drywall, it just gives.
Yeah.
His painting fell on top of my painting, so that's two paintings on the ground. You know, it was
disaster. It's very heartbreaking.
It was before the show too, so
that's even worse.
Yeah, it's even worse.
So we went over some archival. We're giving you, framing tips. We're telling you that a good framing brings value to your work, not just financial value, people.
It makes the work more substantial.
It does. It makes it more substantial. It is the finishing piece. Like Brian was saying, if it's a gallery wrap, a proper, canvas is gallery wrapped, it's ready to go from your finished thing to the top. Do me a favor, guys, please. Finish off your edges.
Yes.
Or if you want to keep it looking, the canvas, that's fine, having it white but tape it off.
Yeah, black tape, flat black tape.
Tape it off,
and
this way you don't have no drippage or anything else from your stuff. Or even if you don't want to have to buy the tape, or you don't want to waste the material, fine, let it drip, but then go back and finish the sides so everything on the sides is one solid color.
So it looks like it's meant to be, frame, hung like that.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I just, I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like when you got drips. If you were in a hurry.
Yeah, it looks unprepared.
Yeah. So don't do that, people. I get that, gallery wrapped canvas is expensive, but I'll tell you it's worth the money. It's well stretched. I can't tell you a one that I've ever had come into my space that was warped.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. And people can stretch their own canvases too.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
It is really
Once
easy.
you get the hang of it, it's.
But you got to have proper space, Brian. I mean, a lot of these artists, they have a bedroom and a closet for a studio.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's not always the idea of having the room to be able to do it, because you really have to have a big table.
Yeah.
You need space. If you're going to do it on the floor, you need to have a floor space. Yeah. But if you don't have that, then you really want to focus and use your money wisely on proper materials. Proper. Michael's and Blick's and all kind of art places, they'll have sales. A lot of artists I know wait till the sales, then they got their coupon, they go in and they get an extra 20% off or whatever, and they use that towards the better material, like the gallery wrapped canvases.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah. Also working with prepared canvases from like the art stores, I think it's worth it to add more gesso. Yeah. Because all it is, it's just a thin coat of gesso. I think it's beneficial to the longevity of the painting.
Yeah, especially if you're new to painting. I don't know anybody that doesn't do that personally, but these are, people that I know are, 20, 30, 40 years artists, but, if you're new and you're just getting into the game, definitely add gesso to your canvases.
I did this painting back in high school on a canvas panel. Mm-hmm. It's just cardboard. Oh yeah. And it's a nice painting, but now 35 years later, there's like all these splotchy, like I call them coffee stains. It's the acids. Yeah. Because I didn't re-gesso it. The factory gesso.
Yeah, it's terrible. I always gesso, because every now and then I will use the canvas boards, and that's just once in a blue moon. I like you, working on more stable material like wood or metal, and I buy archival metal. Yeah. And this way I can draw on it, I can paint on it, I can do a lot of stuff on it. It's a little bit more expensive, but you know what? It's worth it at the end of the day, because my art is expensive.
Yeah, it's worth it to you.
It's worth it to me. Yeah. Because I want somebody to look at it and know that I took the care from A to Z. Yeah. I didn't leave anything out. I didn't cut any corners. Yeah. I'm proud of myself as an artist. I'm not a rich person by anybody's means. But when there's a sale, I'm like, oh, I can get that. Mm-hmm. And so I'll get one or two if I can afford it, and I'll just keep it, because now when I'm ready to work on it, I got it, but those are just things, being an artist is something you should be so proud of. It's a gift that keeps on giving, not just to you, but the people who love your work. And at the end of the day, you want them to continue to look at it 20, 30, 40 years, however long they live. Generational. Yeah, and pass it on, and knowing that you took the care to make sure that your piece was going to outlast. This is part of the legacy that we leave behind. What would you say, and we've kind of touched on it, the pros and cons of the DIY? When you're gonna just go and make your own frames, make your own stretcher bars and all that stuff, what would you say the pros and cons would be?
Well, the pros are you can work at any size you want, so you're not like restricted to standard sizes. Mm-hmm. It's fun. I mean, I have a good time in the garage, turn on the radio and just get blasting away. I like working with my hands. Cons are you need space. You got to keep your shop clean, because sawdust is not good for you. And I think the pros outweigh the cons, personally, for me. Right. It's you can make it your own. You can design your own frames.
And you learn so much by doing it yourself too.
Yeah, everyone you make, you get better.
Yeah.
Everyone. So your first frame, you're going to think it's beautiful. The next one's going to be even more beautiful.
And learning how to measure people, not even just for framing purposes, but learning how to use measuring tools.
Yeah.
That's the top of the list for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've met over the years did not know how to use a measuring tape.
Right. Yeah, they don't know what eighth and 16th.
Listen, I'm not trying to make fun of you guys, those who don't know how to do it. But I can tell you, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You don't know how to use a measuring tape?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a ruler, dude. It's, you know, it's just a ruler.
Yeah.
You know, you learn, you know, even with me with dyslexia, I think math was real easy because I could see math.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could understand math because it's an object I can see.
Yeah.
So learning fractions and that kind of thing. Now, I'm not that great at getting to the decimal point of it or getting real deep other than, you know, like I can almost figure out the 32s, but I'm not there yet.
Right.
But hey, I'm at the 8th,
Yeah.
16th, I can tell you. But
16th is like where I draw the line.
right.
You
But
know,
I'm saying if you need to, because, you know, if you get these...
You gotta break out the micrometers.
Yeah, you have to really... we're not really practiced up to that point, but up to the 16th of an inch is usually, you know, a standard thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think for me, and we're going to do another video talking about the artist essentials. This is tools and things that you really should have. And I'm going to really break that stuff down. I'm going to have it right in front of me, and show you what you need to have in your artist toolkit. That is so important, guys. And, you know, thanks to Brian for coming down and talking about framing with us. And if you have any questions, please pop that down in the comments below. And I'll be happy to share it with Brian and have him, you know, tell me, because Brian's not really too good at these technology type things. So I'll get it done. If you're asking him a question, I will make sure I put the response, okay? Any last words, my dear?
No, frame your work. It's your work deserves it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you learned a few things. I know we don't have a whole lot of time to spend on this stuff, but I think that just getting out the few tips that we were able to give you today will hopefully help you along your artist career. So good luck to you, and we wish you all the best, and share with your friends. Please like the videos if you like them, and subscribe.
Happy framing.